This morning, we're coming to you not only nationwide radio, nationwide 90 FM, but also on Revo TV that we unveiled on Monday. This morning, I want to begin by saying thanks to you for joining Revo TV. I gather the numbers are off the charts. Thousands of people joined us yesterday. Well, continue to spread the word. Okay, it's all about nationwide on Revo TV now. And today is the day before the general elections of September 3. And activities on the road kind of tamper down, for the moment, because the political parties are focused on organization now. Where their voters are, who needs transportation? Who needs a reminder to go out and vote tomorrow? Wherever you are, if you're hearing me, go out and vote. Vote, vote, vote. Don't make anybody else choose for you. Yeah? Because some people will choose for you because them get a money. Yeah? Them get a belly full. You go out and determine who forms the next government of Jamaica. And, talking about reminding, we're learning this morning that there's a digital dirty tricks campaign going on. In some constituencies, digital dirty tricks. We're learning that in some constituencies, we hear of four constituencies so far. People connected to the campaigns have been calling voters and telling them all kinds of things and suggesting that if they don't know who they're going to vote for, they should stay at home. Yeah? But let me tell you now, there's a thing called voter suppression, where you may be a voter who is still to make up your mind, or more importantly, the canvasser of one of the two major political parties have come to a determination that they don't know where you stand, where you are going to place the X. So they're targeting you, to stay at home. And when you stay at home, they know they take care of you. You don't want that to happen to you. And apparently, we're learning more and more of this is taking place. We're going to have more on that at about 10:30, 10:40 this morning. Yeah? Because we hear the constituency names, and I'll tell you that, okay, when we have that lined up for you. But in other news on the campaign trail this morning, the chairman of the JLP's campaign committee, Dr. Christopher Tufton, says multiple groups were consulted in the creation of the party's manifesto. Dr. Tufton said so after criticism that the plan by the JLP to double the minimum wage lacked the requisite input from key stakeholders. He was addressing the issue at a media briefing yesterday at the GLP's Belmont Road offices in St. Andrew.
In developing the manifesto, as was said earlier, there's broad consultation. Minister John Smith probably can comment on how broad that was. Remember now, this is a political organization that's developing a list of policies for the future. And while official agencies provide support based on what is in the public space, we don't really engage civil servants to determine what the political organization is going to do going forward. We use data that is available in the public domain. We have our own advisors who are professionals, and we consult with groups to the extent that they are interested to be consulted. But you have to be careful how you get into manifesto building involving ministries and ministry personnel for fear that you are accused of politicizing these organizations. So one has to be careful of that.
Dr. Christopher Tufton, chairman of the JLP's campaign committee. Of course, Prime Minister and JLP leader Dr. Andrew Holness announced on Sunday evening that the national minimum wage will be doubled from $16,000 to $32,000 on a phased basis. The first phased increase will take the minimum wage to $18,500 effective April 1, 2026. While welcoming the move, the president of the MSME Alliance, Antoinette Hamilton, believes the owners and operators of small businesses ought to have been consulted. Meanwhile, president of the private sector organization of Jamaica, Metri Siaga, says Jamaica's minimum wage must reflect the realities of the economy.
Increases in wages generally, of which minimum wage is one of those increases, should be based on a couple of things. One, we do have a minimum wage commission, and we want to make sure that this passes the test of that minimum wage commission. Two, we want to make sure that wages are aligned to productivity. We cannot continue to be an unproductive society as we are, where our productivity levels keep flat or falling. We just can't continue that anymore. So the wages needs to reflect the increase in productivity. And thirdly, we feel that the wage increase should be tied to the inflation rate.
Metri Siaga, the president of the PSOJ, and the president of another private sector group, this time the Employers Federation, Wayne Chen. He says without an improvement in productivity, a change in the minimum wage will have limited impact.
We need to move to a high-skilled society. Only 40% of the Jamaican workforce have certified skills, and the world is rapidly changing. So upskilling and certainly identifying the skills that the global market is willing to pay for is critical. We have to build resilience into the economy. So we have to diversify away from our dependence on remittances, or dependence on tourism, or dependence on agriculture, which are all vulnerable to exogenous shocks. And as the COVID pandemic and most recently Hurricane Beryl has taught us, we are quite vulnerable as a small developing island economy.
That's Wayne Chen, the president of the Employers Federation. Both men were speaking on Nationwide at 5 on Monday. And Wayne Chen, says it's difficult to define this thing called a livable wage. What does it mean?
We need to move to a high-skilled society. Only 40% of the Jamaican workforce have certified skills, and the world is rapidly changing. So upskilling and certainly identifying the skills that the global market is willing to pay for is critical. We have to build resilience into the economy. So we have to diversify away from our dependence on remittances, or dependence on tourism, or dependence on agriculture, which are all vulnerable to exogenous shocks. And as the COVID pandemic and most recently Hurricane Beryl has taught us, we are quite vulnerable as a small developing island economy.
However, he says he believes a serious conversation, cannot take place in the current political climate. And this is something that is impatient of debate, but not in this political environment. Here's Wayne Chen again.
If any government in the past could have conjured it out of, by just passing a law, it should have been done a long time ago. Clearly, it needs more than just a declaration of intent. It needs a whole ecosystem. A livable wage means a different thing in a different context. If Jamaica had a very robust social safety net, if we had, universal and good education, which we strive for, universal and freely accessible healthcare, which we strive for. But more than that, unemployment insurance, a good pension system, and so on and so forth. The wage would be less. If you have to find those things on your own, if you have to go out and buy health insurance, if you have to go out and pay for private education or private lessons or whatever, the livable wage would be more. So,
Wayne Chen of the Employers Federation. And it's good to be having the discussion, but as I said, not in this environment where people hold strong partisan political views now, and also in a climate when the world and his wife are being promised to the voters of Jamaica. Yeah? But come tomorrow midnight, when we have a winner and a loser, hopefully we begin to get focused again on the realities that are facing us. You know? And it is in that regard the Manufacturers and Exporters Association, the JMEA, called on both political parties to keep their promises grounded in reality. The JMEA says while the manifestos of the parties highlight important areas of development, the campaign has been dominated by promises that far exceed Jamaica's economic capacity. Here's more from Nationwide's Robian Williams.
Among the proposals are reducing income tax to 15%, raising the tax threshold to $3.5 million, and doubling the minimum wage to $32,000. The JMEA says it supports better wages and improved living standards, but it stresses that there must be a credible roadmap to grow the economy to sustain such measures. Executive Director of the JMEA, Kamisha Blake, says Jamaica has long struggled with stagnant productivity, weak growth, and the challenges of a large informal economy. She argues that unless fundamentals such as skills, infrastructure, energy costs, and public sector efficiency are addressed, campaign promises will remain empty words. JMEA President Catherine Silvera warns that small manufacturers and exporters would be especially vulnerable to a sudden 100% wage hike. She says without strategies to improve productivity, businesses could be forced to raise prices or cut jobs, hurting the same workers such policies intend to help. The association's Deputy President Cecil Foster is urging both major political parties to exercise sobriety and responsibility. He says commitments should be based on fiscal discipline, data-driven policies, and consultation with stakeholders. In that regard, the JMEA has outlined several medium-term priorities. These include achieving 4 to 5% growth in gross domestic product GDP, lowering energy costs, further reducing crime, cutting the debt-to-GDP ratio to below 60% by 2027, expanding industrial infrastructure, and modernizing the public sector. The JMEA says it is time for sober leadership and practical, sustainable policies developed in partnership with the private sector rather than what it calls wild promises. Robian Williams for Nationwide News.
Thank you. Thank you, Roby. Well, it's time for the break. Let's take the break and come back with more. Well, we have what you may call a public service advisory for you. Yeah? You know, tomorrow is election day, and the Southeast Regional Health Authority is advising the public that additional health centers in Kingston and St. Andrew will be temporarily closed on September 3. This is very important. Yeah? This is to facilitate their use as polling stations during the elections on Wednesday. And they say the Windward Road and Harborview Health Centers, along with the Edna Manley and Denham Town Health Centers, will be used for voting. The other facilities in Kingston and St. Andrew that will be closed for the day are Olympic Gardens, Seaview Gardens, and Lawrence Tavern Health Centers. Yeah? The public is also reminded that the Bartons and Riversdale centers in St. Catherine will be used as polling stations. Additionally, the Landue Health Center in St. Thomas will also be closed. Members of the public are being urged to reschedule all appointments and seek medical attention elsewhere. Okay? Regular services at the above centers are expected to resume on Thursday, September 4. So be mindful of that. If you are needing to go to one of your health centers, it may be closed tomorrow because they are being used as polling stations. Yeah? If you have an emergency, of course, you may have to head to another health facility, such as your hospital, your nearest hospital. All right? Now, the Prime Minister is emphasizing that the JLP is committed to establishing a peaceful society through the continued reduction in major crimes. Yes, speaking on Sunday, he repeated his vision for Jamaicans to be able to sleep with their windows and doors open.
In 2016, I stood at a meeting in St. James, just outside of where we now have the Zozo in Mount Salem. And I made a presentation. I said, I want Jamaicans to be able to sleep with their windows and doors open. And people ridiculed the statement, but I know what God has in store for this country. I don't set my hat where I can reach it. I'm always stretching. And it is the ambition to achieve peace in Jamaica why I made that statement, that ambitious statement that Jamaicans must have peace so we can sleep with our windows and doors open. And by God, we are going to achieve it.
A very passionate Prime Minister, Holness, on Sunday. And he has been repeating that statement now because he sees where it's within reach with the significant reductions in major crimes, in particular murders. Yes? He says if his party is re-elected tomorrow, they'll be making greater efforts to advance the building of peace in the country.
In 3 years, we have upped the murder rate by 55%. Some people thought it was never possible, but we did it. We did it using zones of special operations. Follow me. Follow me. Tell me one community in Jamaica that is now at war with another community. Tell me that. Just think about it. Tell me one.
Prime Minister Holness driving home the point that he has been the Prime Minister with the best record in the last 30, 40 years of reducing major crimes in the country. And we're learning from the Jamaica Constabulary Force this morning that in keeping with that, what is now clearly a trend, murders continue to go down at more than 40% since the start of the year when compared to last year. That's the latest crime data from the JCF. Up to August 30, 459 homicides had been committed across Jamaica. And listen to this, that's 326 fewer murders when compared to the corresponding period last year. The JCF says St. Andrews South remains a hot spot, leading the country's murder tally at 55. The division recorded 31 fewer murders when compared to the 68 committed in the same period last year. According to the JCF, shootings also saw a major decline of 35%. St. James took the top spot with the highest drop in both murders and shootings. St. James recorded 51 fewer murders than the 92 committed in the corresponding period last year. The only other major crime to report a decline is rape, which is down by 26%. However, the JCF says break-ins and robberies are still increasing. Both major crimes rose by 29% and 11% respectively up to August 30. An update now on something that really shook us last week. The man who's suspected of killing 2 toddlers in Monique, St. Anne, did not confess to the crime. The commanding officer for the St. Anne Division, Superintendent Rohan Elliott, gave the clarification following media reports suggesting he had admitted involvement.
I'm aware that it is in the media that the suspect involved in the murder of the two children in Swamp District, Monique, has confessed to the crime. But I want to make it clear that he did not confess.
He did not confess, according to the superintendent there in charge of the St. Anne Division, Rohan Elliott. You'll recall the bodies of the two young boys were found in a wooded area behind the man's house last Wednesday. They are identified as 3-year-old Shamir Henry and 1-year-old Amir Saunders. It's understood that the accused man carried out the attack on his son Amir and stepson Shamir while under the influence of narcotics. Superintendent Elliott says charges are expected to be laid against him soon.
He remains in custody and should be charged in short order. He went to court last week, Thursday, was remanded by the court until September 2, and we expect that he will be brought before the court after certain investigation processes have been satisfied.
Superintendent Rohan Elliott, the commanding officer for the St. Anne Police Division. One more bit of news to give you, especially users of the state-owned bus company, Jamaica Urban Transit Company, JUTC, says all students will ride free of cost on its buses from September through October 2025. In a statement on Monday, the JUTC says students are required to present a valid school identification card or be dressed in their school uniform to benefit from this initiative. The JUTC says the special provision forms part of its efforts to ease the financial burden on parents and guardians at the start of the school year. Managing Director of the JUTC, Owen Ellington, says the company is not just in the business of transportation, but also in nation building. He's anticipating that the initiative will have a positive impact on thousands of students in the Kingston Metropolitan Transport region and beyond. Ellington says it will encourage punctuality, reduce absenteeism, and contribute to a smoother school term. All right? I think that's where we're going to leave it for this morning. Yeah? We are going to take our next break. And when we come back, we're going to take your calls and more on what is happening. A digital dirty tricks election campaign is on in 4 constituencies. Apparently, the telephone numbers of thousands of voters on the election register, the voters list, have been hacked, accessed. And now, campaigns, political campaigns from 4 constituencies we have had reports are using these numbers to target voters. Yeah? We're going to give you the details after the break. What is happening on the eve of the election? Apparently, we're learning that some political campaigners have illegally obtained the private telephone numbers of voters on the voters list and have been calling them and apparently making their political pitches. This, I gather, is illegal. And we have this morning the data privacy expert, attorney at law, Chuck Cameron, with us. He made it public this morning on Nationwide. And subsequent to his disclosure, we heard from the Member of Parliament for West Rural St. Andrew, Juliet Cuthbert-Flynn, that some of her constituents have been targeted as well. The two of them join us now. Good morning, Mrs. Cuthbert-Flynn. Good morning, Chuck.
Mr. Cameron, good morning all.
All right, so I'm going to ask it to pump it up in my ear for me. I'm not hearing them. Yeah, barely hearing them. If you could just increase the volume in my ear. Thank you very much. Yeah. Chuck Cameron. Chuck?
Yes, sir, I'm hearing you clearly.
Good. And I'm also hearing you clearly. Tell me, what is it that we have been able to establish, Chuck Cameron?
So I'm in the Eastern St. Andrew constituency, and I have received calls from, well, that's where I go and live. I've received several calls from persons that I know that they have been receiving calls from persons receiving calls saying, pitching themselves, but the troubling part is after they have pitched their case, they say, if you are not sure or you're not happy with the work that the incumbent has done, well, don't bother go out and vote. So that raises two issues. These are persons' personal mobile number. There is no
Hold on, Chuck. Tell me, when you say pitch cases, so I'm a voter in Eastern St. Andrew. They got my number somehow illegally. They call me, and what do they say to me?
What I intend to do in this constituency and why I'm the better choice.
Oh, so it is the voice of the candidate?
On one occasion, I've heard that is so. On the other occasion, I've heard that they are representatives or members of the campaign.
Oh, okay. So they say, I am so and so.
Information that I have received, and I didn't receive any call, so I could only share with you what has been shared with me.
Yes. So in one case, you can hear the voice of the candidate making her case, and in other instances, representatives of that candidate.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And you're about to explain why this is problematic.
From two perspectives, and I always start with the Data Protection Act. It is meant to protect the constitutional rights of citizens, and that is where I always start. We have a right to free and fair elections, and we have an opportunity and a right to exercise our franchise.
Yes.
When persons access our personal data without our consent, and this is very, very explicit. The Data Protection Act specifically says if you are going to be calling any individual to pitch anything to them, market anything, you must have their explicit consent. So the question is, the person that have called me said at no time did they give their mobile number to any political representative of either party. And as such, there's no question that there has been a breach of the Data Protection Act, and for those unsuspecting persons, they may actually be persuaded to stay home, and that is restricting their right to exercise their franchise. That's on the Data Protection Act side. But when you look at the Representation of People's Act, that is a criminal offense under Section 92 that speaks to undue influence by whatever means. It's not only criminal, it's not only intimidation, but if you're in any way seeking to influence or suppress a vote, that is also a criminal offense.
But how did they get the phone numbers? That's the other issue that is being raised here.
I did not realize, now that I've heard your report, I did not realize that it was so widespread.
Well, let me go to Juliet Cuthbert-Flynn. She's up in West Rural, St. Andrew. Mrs. Cuthbert-Flynn, what has been the experience with some of your constituents?
Yes, Cliff and Mr. Cameron, thank you for the opportunity. And, let me tell you, this all started the day before the election day workers last Friday. I started getting calls from my constituents stating that they're receiving calls from the PMP office That is how they call and say they're calling from the PMP office of Joan Gordon Webley, and that they're seeking their vote and they must vote for Joan on election day. Of course, at first it was just 2 phone calls that I got. I then reported it because, as Mr. Cameron stated, I was actually a member of the Committee for the Data Protection Act. And I thought, wait a minute, how did they get these persons' telephone numbers? And when I asked, they said, no, we did not give out our numbers to anyone. This was my cell phone number. And they were unsure as to how they got their telephone numbers to call them personally. I know that Miss Webley had called one of my Young Jamaica team from months ago, trying to get that person on her team, as she stated. And I believe she called personally. It continued after last Friday into the week. I made a report to the EOJ office because I thought this is totally wrong for persons to now have persons' telephone numbers and to be calling them, telling them that they need to vote for her. And let me just say that the persons who are being called, they're very upset that somehow somebody out there have their telephone number. I just received another call. Actually saw one of my workers, and she said they called her daughter saying, you are a first-time voter, and we are asking you to vote for Joan. And so for some, I guess they're looking at the canvas sheet to know who the first-time voters are. They have a sheet, and I'm also told, it is just really sad that Ms. Webley has taken the old-time politics of yesteryear and come into West Rural St. Andrew. And I want her to know that the people of West Rural St. Andrew, they do not appreciate what is happening. They're all calling me from Cypress in Red Hills to Lawrence Tavern, all across West Rural St. Andrew, calling me to tell me that they're receiving telephone calls. And I'm also told that at this time, there's possibility a tent set up at her office in Golden Spring somewhere with a lot of young people down there. And I don't know if that is where the telephone calls are being made. I have forwarded to you one of the numbers that I received. But,
yes.
And I'm going to be getting some more numbers. The problem that I'm having, I don't know where and how they were able to retrieve and to get personal telephone numbers. And I have a serious problem with that. While I may give up my telephone numbers to everybody because I was a member of parliament there, I do not understand how she would have gotten hold of people's telephone number and their personal information. That is a problem for me.
Just a moment, because we want to be absolutely clear, and I think we need your help here, Chuck, as the attorney. Nothing is wrong, or what is wrong with a political organization, yes, getting the phone number of a potential voter and seek to engage that voter with the hope of getting them on their side to vote for them. Nothing is inherently wrong with that. What is wrong? What is wrong?
Something is inherently wrong with that, because that runs contrary first to the constitutional right that was declared by Chief Justice Brian Sykes, that declared that you own your personal data and no one can use it without your authorization. So that's where we start from. When you look at Section 10 of the Data Protection Act, it says that you cannot call any person for any direct marketing purposes without their explicit consent. So that is what is fundamentally wrong from a constitutional.
So the key thing there, Chuck, the key thing there, if that voter provides Mrs. Gordon Webley and her team his or her number voluntarily, then there's nothing wrong in that team using the number to reach out to the voter.
That's their job. And as long as they are pitching their case, no problems whatsoever.
The key thing is the voter must have consented to give them their number voluntarily.
It must have come into their possession in a lawful manner.
Yes.
And then they must and then so it's two aspects. Them coming into the possession of the person's phone number in a lawful manner, and then having permission to call them for that specific purpose. It's two discrete issues.
Yes, that's the key. So, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, you're of the view that they did not get these numbers with the consent of your potential voter?
Not at all. That is what I'm told. And so I know that not just one, but a few of them were baffled because they said, we did not give out our number to anyone at all to call us. Nobody canvassed us, and we did not give out our telephone number. We do not know how they got the number. And I think that was the most upsetting part for them, is how did they get my number?
Well, we're learning.
Why are they calling me to tell me that who I must vote for?
Well, we're learning that in addition to what we have learned from you, Chuck, about East St. Andrew, this is happening. We're learning that it is also happening in West Rural St. Andrew, as you heard from Juliet Cuthbert Flynn, Northeast Manchester, we're learning it's happening, and South Manchester as well. No, which leads us to ask.
Desperation at its best.
Oh, you know that, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn?
Well, I mean, what it is, most of the people, or all the persons who are calling me, are voting for the Jamaica Labour Party. So clearly what they're doing is trying to target my people to tell them, which they can't convince them at all. And then I think that is the most upsetting part for the people. You know, they're very upset that they got their number somehow, and they're calling them to tell them to vote for this lady who they have no interest in. And so that is why I am concluding that this is what is being done.
Yes. Chuck?
Yes, sir.
I have to ask, Northeast Manchester, West Rural St. Andrew, Eastern St. Andrew, South Manchester, 4 constituencies. Doesn't that suggest that this is an organized accessing illegally of people's phone numbers?
So there are 2 sources. I can't say whether or not it's an illegal accessing, but I can say that they called without consent. That's what we could say unequivocally, to say that they accessed it unlawfully or illegally. I do not know, but what is clear is that they use these numbers and call the persons without their consent. You do have businesses that are in the business of direct marketing and selling lists and sending SMS blasts, and also we have the source of the numbers. So and when I say the source of the numbers, the telcos, so there are several places that they can be obtained, but selling or sharing the information for that purpose or failing. So when you approach a marketing company or a telco, there is no lawful basis for that telco or marketing company to share it with a third party for their individual purposes. So there are serious questions to be raised.
So what if they were to go to the telephone directory and pick up the numbers from there?
My mobile number is not in any telephone directory. I'm sure yours isn't either. These are people receiving calls on their mobile number.
Yes.
Their private mobile number.
What should people do if they become the subject of one of these calls?
Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn laid out that roadmap. Capture when and who called you from what number and make a complaint. We have institutions in place to protect your rights, namely the Information Commissioner and the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. So capture the information and then make a formal complaint.
Yeah, and you reported to the Electoral Commission of Jamaica?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, just hang on a moment for me, please.
Sure.
Chuck Cameron, thank you very much.
My pleasure, all the best.
Good. Hold on a minute for me, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, as we go to a break. We still have with us the MP for Juliet Cuthbert Flynn, seeking a third term from that constituency. Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, tomorrow is election day, yes? How are you for the day tomorrow?
I don't, there's a law against promotion and any kind of campaign in the day before. So I think I would rather not speak about anything to really do with my campaign at this time. I'm not a lawyer, but I believe that from what I've read and know.
Well, I'm not asking you to campaign here now.
Right.
I'm aware of that law. But how are you in terms of your readiness?
We're good. We are good and we are very ready. Yes, we're good and we're very, very much ready.
A lot is going to happen according to the political commentator class about organization. Organization is going to decide the outcomes of several constituencies. One, do you share that view?
Organization is always key to anything that you do. That is your preparation. So definitely, organization, if you're not organized in any, even in your house, there'll be chaos. And so organization is very important to anything that you're going to do, especially something like a political campaign where you're managing, you're looking at a constituency like mine that has 41,000 people and you have a number of voters. That's the voting list that we do have. And so you have to be, with 4 divisions, you have to be organized in everything. Your workers, you have at least 700 workers. Everybody's all over the place. And so you have to get that right on the day.
So you have, did I hear you correctly? You have 700 workers?
At least you have your indoor, you have your outdoor, you have the cluster managers, you have your runners. When you look at it, you're talking about at least 200 or 100 and something workers per division. And I have 4 divisions.
Whoa. And you have a geographically large constituency.
I do.
So what does that mean for transportation as well?
Transportation, that's also very key because the runners, those are the people going out to get the runners, going out for the people on the day.
Sorry about that. Tell me, Mrs. Flynn, so the last 48 hours going into today and tomorrow, yes? Your people are up from early morning until late evening?
Oh, definitely. Persons we're on the move.
Oh.
No sleep until afterwards, until victory is claimed.
No sleep on, and that is what? Wednesday night into Thursday morning?
Wednesday night, right.
You're seeking a third term, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Cliff, it sounds like I'm campaigning here.
No. All right. Okay. I don't want to break the law, and I don't want you to break the law. Have a good one, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn. Wish you all the best tomorrow.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good. I don't want to break the law, yeah? Because, them looking to come to me or come at me. All right. Neville from Montego Bay. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Hughes.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, I've been in your program all these years. I've never been tempted to call, but this morning I'm listening to the discussion about this phone call.
Yes.
And I had to call because it's happening here in West Central St. James. Very common. Yeah.
Hello?
West Central St. James?
Yes. That's Marlene Malahoo.
Marlene Malahoo Ford versus Andre Horton.
That's right. Yeah.
Tell me what has been happening there.
Well, it's basically the same thing. I can't say they have encouraged the persons that I know that told me about it. They have encouraged them not to go vote, but they are soliciting vote by telephone. So how they get the numbers, I don't really know.
No. But they have the numbers.
Yeah, exactly, because they called my daughter. She told me about it, and then a couple of days after, they called my grandson.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that's the 2 closest people to me, so I guess I've been calling other people as well.
Oh. So these are, if you don't mind, are these both floor and digicel numbers being called?
These are one floor, one digicel.
Oh, okay. And do you know what time of day they're called?
It's during the day.
During
the work day, yeah.
And what are the things they say to the people they're calling?
Well, what they do is basically encouraging them to vote for this particular candidate. Apparently, it's happening on one side. Then I haven't heard of it from the other side.
Which side?
From Mr. Horton's campaign.
Oh, so
not him personally. Not him personally, but people from his campaign.
Right. So they call and ask for the support for the voter to support Mr. Horton.
That's right.
Oh, interesting.
And apparently they have some understanding of who's leaning towards the Labour Party. I don't know how that, but.
Well, what it does, sir, it's not difficult to know that because they would have been doing their canvassing, yes, right across, in this case, West Central St. James. They would have been doing their canvassing. So they would have known that Cliff Hughes lives in, give me an area down there, Bogites.
Hello?
Give me an area from the constituency, Mount Salem, from West Central. Yeah, and they go to Cliff Hughes' yard, they talk to Cliff Hughes as a canvasser, and they are able to make a call as to whether Cliff Hughes is leaning Labour or PNP. And if they can't make up their minds, they say doubtful. So they target you, and based on the canvas sheet, the results, they know how to approach you. They do that. And that is good political organization, sir. It means that the PNP down there are organized. They are organized. So they know their voters, they know who is for them, who is not for them, who is doubtful, and they're targeting them. That is political organization, sir. Nothing wrong with that. It is when you access, as you heard, when you access the person's phone number without their consent, that's when it becomes illegal. All right? I gather we lost Neville. But if you're listening to us, watching us, and you have had experiences of this, you let me know. Yeah? So far we hear that Northeast Manchester, West Rural St. Andrew, Eastern St. Andrew, South Manchester, West Central St. James. They're having these calls.